All right, so let's take a look at what we have. We have in our S editor here, we have a entity event name, which is move forward and back. Excuse me. And then within that move forward and back, we created two events. We have a keyboard event to move W, Y, and then S to move -1. And on our character here, what we have is a couple scripts. We have a script canvas, which is connected to the script that we have named Steve Movement. We haven't added anything yet. And then we have an input component, and that's connecting us to our input for our S editor here. So let's go ahead and open up our script canvas here. And I started doing some little kind of debugging or testing in here. So I'm going to actually just start from just sort of this first piece here. Now what we have here is we have a game entity. So this is a little different than what we were doing before. And what we're doing is on entity activated. That means like once we see our thing in the game. And remember, this is attached to our little guy here, our soon-to-be maintenance guy. And so what we want to do is we want to create an input event that connects to this input here. And so we're going to just drag this out, and we're going to look for create input event. And all we're going to do is paste in the name of the input event that we're trying to get to. So if you guys remember that we have an input event here, and for some reason it is now called 2. I must have typed something. So I'm going to do move forward and back here. So I'm going to copy this input event here, and I'm going to paste it inside of here, and that's going to create the connection. Now the next thing I want to do is get an on-pressed input. So in here I'm going to type in input to show you all the different inputs. So you can see onput, and under our input thing we have on-pressed, on-held, all the other stuff. I actually want to do on-held, not on-pressed. And what on-held does is as you're holding it down. Now you might be wondering, well, where is the connection, like the connect to get in and out? Well, you have to turn those on so you can see them. So we're going to connect that here, and then this input event notification ID, that's this. So this is going to, when we push W or S, it's going to send those values here to which buttons we're going to be holding. So that's our source for what's being held. And so what I'd like to do is, let's see, on my out here when I'm holding it, I want to get the forward direction. So I can do get forward. Let's see. So here we go, from my entity transform. So the reason why I'm doing it from the entity is forward is when I press W, I want to get this forward direction. So when we plug in D or like A or D or something to rotate our character, it'll actually always look for this forward direction. So this is a local translation versus the other one, which is a world translation. So we're going to grab our forward here, our forward value. And then what we want to do is we want to plug that into the translation of this object in the world. So we're going to get the forward direction. So this is where we're always facing forward. And we also want to get our current position in the world. So get world translation. So wherever we're moving in the world here, I'm going to rig those together. So right now we're getting the forward direction, and we have our translation here and our thing. And what I want to do is just add them both together. And then I'm going to set my world translation, set the character's world translation. So I'm going to go over this again. So for now, we're just going to add those two vectors. So under the math class, they have where you can, this one, math add. Notice it's going to add two different values. So if I add the my current world translation, so we can kind of actually set this up top for a second. I want to set, yeah, it's going into my out here. Yeah, so I want this to connect here, and I want this to be my top value, and I'm going to add that. I'm going to add my lower vector. See how these are vector 3s? So I'm going to add these two values, and what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to set the world translation to this. And so what setting the world translation does is this is what actually moves our little guy. So when we push W or S, so we're going to get those values from here. And so we're going to grab our game entity, which is this character, see self. And then I'm going to push W or S, and those values of whatever I'm pushing are going to be held down. And as they're held down here, we're going to export that out to getting the forward transformation. So if it's W, which is positive one, it'll go forward. If it's S, which is negative one, it'll move back. But we're going to add that 1 or negative 1, that vector, to whatever the current world translation is, and then that's going to set the position. So we're actually kind of adding or negating from whatever our current position is here. So let me save that. And it looks like, let's hit Control G and see if that works. Yeah, there we go. See how fast he's moving? So he's moving really, really quick. Part of the problem with that is before we get our forward, we can multiply that value times a decimal value to slow it down. So I'm going to go in here and let's reopen this. And so right here where we have our get forward, I'm going to move this off a little bit. And I'm just going to, before we get into this, I'm just going to multiply under math here. And the value can be like 0.1. And I'm going to save that, and I'm going to hit Control G in here. And what you'll notice is I push S and W, it moves a lot slower.